Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study in Pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite. And we're going to take a look at part 3 of the introduction, and it's just 10 pages. It's going to be very, very brief, but it just pages 40 to 50. It just gives us a little bit of a summation, but it'll wrap up the introduction. And let's go to block 1. And take a look at the scriptures of St. John and St. Paul. The prologue of the Gospel of John reveals a deeper mystery behind the scriptures. The persons of the Trinity are elements of the Godhead which we cannot entirely grasp in their true nature. Deeper meaning behind Scripture. The image of God within us is a reflection of the entire Trinity. Knowledge beyond intellect is reflective of Paul's statement in Galatians that they know God, or rather they are known by God. And then 3, John's prologue and the hidden meaning behind Scripture allows us to reach the state of unknowing, a knowledge outside the self, an ecstatic experience, and that comes from the Greek ekstasis, out of self-existence. So it's an ecstatic experience as theosis, unification with the Godhead. But as we know, we've been studying early Eastern theology for a while now, and we know that the Gospel of John was the preferred gospel by the early Eastern churches. They preferred the Gospel of John. It was more philosophical. It was supportive of their mystic theology, so it's not unusual that Pseudo-Dionysius would take this position of prioritizing the Gospel of John. Let's go to block 2 and take a look at the suprapersonal Godhead. Suprapersonal Godhead turns toward creation and humanity, toward the heart or the psyche of mankind, and then it does so through the incarnate Christ as eternal light, who streams forth the doxa glory of God. Now, it's important to note here that Pseudo-Dionysius, in his Neoplatonism, fully supports the incarnate Christ. Because, yes, Neoplatonism did imprint Christianity. In the 5th century, there was a tendency to unite Christian scriptures with Greek philosophy. And the wrong position was that of Gnosticism, because the Gnostics denied the incarnation of Christ. That's why they were heresy. Gnostics did not affirm the incarnation of Christ. Neoplatonism, by Pseudo-Dionysius, also tries to unite Greek concepts with Christianity, but it's important to note here in block 2, he does affirm the incarnation of Christ against Gnosticism. So he does, even if we agree or disagree with uniting Christianity with Greek concepts, we have to agree with the fact that the stand here was affirming the incarnate Christ against the Gnostics who refused to believe in the incarnate Christ. Now, block 2, note 2, the incarnate eternal light of glory encounters the contemplative self, and that self is striving toward ecstatic theosis, unification with the Godhead, and to reach that theosis through the realized return moment, which employs the triad of the mystical path. The mystical path of contemplation, positing, and return. Remember, the early Eastern theology we've been studying is all about meditation, all about contemplation, all about the monasteries. The early Eastern theology of from the 2nd to the 7th century, all of it was struggling with Christology, but The Eastern Church's early theology was a mystical theology. Let's go on to block 3 and take a look at attaining the higher region of experience through the 4 steps of mystical perception, beginning with observation through the senses, through the filter of the model of Christological providence, and then recognition and recollection of the eternal forms present that are an entrance point for our participation in God's kingdom. And then the state of unknowing, like the cloud on Mount Sinai. Like the cloud on Mount Sinai. Where Moses encountered God directly. Theosis experiences a reality that is best understood as ekphrasis, image of light, which needs linguistic interpretation through the signs of the kingdom. So, the believer encounters Christ as image of light in the midst of contemplation, and then seeks to interpret that linguistically, and that's called ekphrasis in the Greek. That need to linguistically interpret the experience of encountering Christ as image of light, the doxa glory light of the living Godhead. So what we get here is basically a conclusion to the meat of the introduction, which is really pages 1 through 40. 40 to 50 just is a conclusion. But in block 1, we're told that the Gospel of John is to be prioritized by this Neoplatonism of Pseudo-Dionysius. And then, block 2, this Neoplatonism will affirm the incarnation of Christ. Christ is fully God and fully man. The Gnostics said that that's impossible. There is no belief in the incarnate Christ in Gnosticism, so Pseudo-Dionysius negates Gnosticism in block 2. And then block 3, we've got that triad of the path of mystical theology. And that is the path that early Eastern theology took in the Eastern churches. They took up a mystical theology, and they did that by firmly founding their faith on the gospel they prioritized, the Gospel of John. However, they did also take up Paul's statement in Galatians that it's a dialectical relationship with the Godhead. We know and we are known. In meditation, we know and we are known. So they also take up that dialectical statement by Paul to the Galatians. But they prioritize the Gospel of John, especially chapter 1. So that's going to give us a very, very brief part 3 to the introduction, because technically parts 1 and 2 covered all of the substantial content. This is just conclusive statements. But it gives us a prioritized Gospel of John. It gives us affirmation of an incarnate Christ. And it gives us a path of mystical theology. So that's going to wrap up our introduction, which is a commentary by C.E. Rolt in 1920. We will do a composite introduction next. It'll cover pages 1 through 50, the commentary by C.E. Rolt, and it'll give us a picture of Neoplatonic Christianity that we will have as our reference when we get into the primary text. So the next lesson is going to be a composite look at all 50 pages of the commentary introduction by C.E. Rolt. But that'll wrap up part 3. We'll pick up next time with our composite look at the entire commentary introduction.